end of an era. Insigne and Bernardeschi. 100 matches the Italians played. 23 wins, 22 draws, 55 losses, a minus 61 goal differential, and perhaps the most damning, 0 playoff appearances, 0 trophies. The Italian job was a miserable failure, and it hurts me in some ways to have to do this to Jimmy Brennan, who's captained this team, who has talked ad nauseum with your colleagues both here and at Footy Prime about this team, but it's finally over. We can stop asking what they should do or when they should do it. It should have been done yesterday, et cetera, et cetera. Bit of a blank slate now. It's going to take some time to recover financially and what the lasting impacts were on the pitch. But where's your level of optimism right now, Jimmy, now that this failed experiment has finally come and gone?
Well, that's a good question, Adam. I think they're in a good position right now because, you know, that's 2 players that were not producing, and for the money that they spent on them, you expected an awful lot more than what you actually got. So to move them and get them off the roster, it's a bonus for them right now. It puts them in a good situation. The other situation is they have a large number of players that are out of contract at the end of the year, roughly probably maybe 10 to 15 players. So what they have to do is get through this season, and going into next season, they're going to make sure that they get the recruiting right, they bring in the right players, and they're going to make a difference. And with this league, and we talked about parity with Major League Soccer, you get 2, 3 decent players, they can come in and change a whole team and actually make you a contender. And we've seen that throughout the league over the last number of years. So I genuinely think they're in a good position right now, getting rid of those 2, and then making sure come the end of the season, the top players that you do want to keep, you keep them, and then the rest, you've got to move them on and bring in the right players to be competitive.
I always thought, Jimmy, that like one of the biggest, probably most painful things when I think about this club is the fact that they haven't really tapped into the talent hub that is in the GTA. Like you look at players like Jaden Nelson or like Ali Ahmed that are actually in Toronto or played for Toronto FC and then having success in Vancouver Whitecaps. This happens in football, right? Where sometimes you heat up at different times, but it seems like it happens a lot for Toronto FC in terms of players just slipping through the fingers. Do you think like that should be a prime focus moving forward, like tapping into the youth level and making sure that all the players that grow up in the club can maybe one day play for the first team?
100%. You know, that's what the academy's for, is to develop players and get them into your first team, right? Once they do get in there, then there's an automatic connection with the fan base, because if Toronto fans see Jordan Wilson, who's from Toronto, now putting on that TFC jersey, there's a connection there.
For sure.
And then what you want those players to do is actually push their limits so that maybe you do sell them for 5 million, 10 million one day, and then you end up having a conveyor belt of players. And I don't think they've done it too well over the last number of years. If I look at our national team right now, the amount of players from the GTA that are worth absolutely millions have never set foot in the Toronto FC Academy.
Yeah.
So the recruiting and the scouting in the GTA has got to get better as well, and they've got to start attracting top talent. Not that they don't have top talent. They do have some very good players over the last number of years that have come through, that maybe have got into the first team, but those diamonds, they got to start producing more of them at the moment.
Well, what do you think, in your opinion, what do you think the biggest issue is? Because it's, in academy football, like it's different than when I grew up. It was like club football. You get the best club team against the best club team, and you go at it for each age group. But now a lot of kids are paying top dollar to go to academy. But how is that not translating into actually being a professional? Like where's the gap is basically my question. Like how is that not translating?
Look, you know, I think a lot of times when you look at academies across the board in North America, you know, they'll post and say, oh, the U17s won 5-0, and then the U18s won, 6-1 against so-and-so. But at the end of the day, it's not about the results. It's about the players that you're pushing through the system to get into that first team. Now, if you've got, say, the U19s, and if you can get one that comes out into that first, you as coaches and staff have done your job. It's about producing players. You're never going to produce 19, 20 players that are going to go into your first team, right? But if you can get 1 or 2, then you've done your job. And that's the problem, is I think sometimes you maybe focus too much on the results and not working on the individuals that are going to that have all the qualities to get into that first team.
Anything else you want to ask, Jimmy?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
No, feel free.
No. After
you're doing a great job. So, Jimmy, obviously this is a piece, another chapter in a history of TFC that loves the sexy, splashy signing. And we send Annie Petrillo down to Little Italy, and she interviews fans who are sobbing because Napoli European champions are here, and Jermaine Defoe once upon a time. Like that's always kind of been what this management has wanted to do in the last 10 years. Now that they have these contracts on the books and coaches that aren't there anymore, and new ownership with Rodgers coming in and buying so much of Bell out of the company and Keith Pelly running it, like, can that strategy persist? Can they keep being that splashy DP buying team?
Yeah, of course you can. If you got the money, you can go buy whoever you want. But do I think they want to be that way? No, I don't. I think, they've got to look at it strategic now. They know they've got it wrong with the last two DPs. They don't want that to happen again. They've got to make sure that they do their due diligence. They find the right player that's going to buy into their system, buy into their identity, philosophy that they want now as an organization. We heard last year that they had to change all that because they felt that they didn't really have an identity as a club. And now they're working behind the scenes to find that identity, philosophy. So when you go get your DP now, he's got to fit into the system that you want to play and who you are as a club.
Jordan, with the current regime in Toronto, Hernandez, GM, Fraser as the coach, they've got this big obstacle off their desks now.
Yeah.
How much time do you think the clock has started? Saying, okay, this is what you've been asking for? Or do you think they get a bit more patience and a bit more runway to try to navigate this thing?
I think it has started because that's just the nature of the business, right? Like, they're the first ones to go. A coach, if you have a winning season, if you have a losing season, you're thinking there's pressure on you all the time. You're breathing heavy. But this was a huge crater, a huge weight off your shoulders. But I still don't think, Jimmy, I'd love to hear how you feel about this, but I still don't think this is anywhere close to being a competitive Toronto FC side. So I think once certain players get off the books, when you can recruit well, maybe hopefully going into next season, you can see what Fraser can do. I think he's a top-notch coach. Like, I think the players will respond well to him. But there's just been so much filth, for lack of a better word, with this club for so long. I think you have to give him some time. It's unfair. Like, for me, even looking at Fraser coming into this season, you must be thinking, okay, they have told him you're going to get rid of Insigne and Bernardeschi before March. And the fact that it just happened in July is like, can you really grade him on that performance when these guys are eating up so much money and you can't really play the football that you would like to play? Yeah. It's tough for a manager. I really feel for him.
Well, I think part of the reason why you get rid of them now is because the windows are open in Europe, right? They're not in season, so now they can actually start to go get players. Everybody's working their rosters right now. So that's part of the reason. But then, with Robin Fraser, he's inherited a team that's not his, right? Yeah. And 9 times out of 10, when you are hired as a manager, it's normally because the team's not doing well, right? Unless, you're a Liverpool manager who gets a top team, which never happens, and you get to take that team over, which everybody wishes they did, but then he didn't. So it's going to take time for him to get the players that he wants to start working with, and you've got to move them on. And as for Jason Hernandez as well, he's in that position where he's got to shift players, he's got to move contracts. So behind the scenes, they're working hard. He's doing a good job. He knows what's available and what they have coming to the end of the season. And they've got targets that they're going to go after, but it's all the stuff that they've inherited that they've got to move and shift before they can actually start building the team that they want.
Okay, if I made you president for the day, Jimmy, you're Jason's boss, you're Robin's boss. Yeah. What's the first thing you're trying to do, whether it's a step in a new strategy, a direction of a new strategy, or a change you want to make?
I don't think I would give them any direction right now, only because I think they're doing what they can because they're limited. And if I'm president right now, I'm limited with what they've got. So I look and think, okay, you were able to maneuver 2 players that you wanted off the roster. You've got them out of the way. You know that you've got certain players that are out of contract coming towards the end. And it's really making sure that they get the scouting right and the recruiting, and make sure you have an understanding that you do have to get the best players and the right players that are going to suit your system.
Sounds like a busy day. Jordan, what would you do?
No, I don't know. I'm going to actually defer and ask you a question because obviously you're the first signing for TFC, which is, it's always crazy when I sit next to you and say that because I remember the picture and everything when I saw it. But when I'm looking at it, would you be Do you think when TFC were very good and were winning championships, 2016, 2017, you kind of had a complete side, but you had very good DPs? Like, I'm looking at Giovinco. There was a time I thought he should run for mayor. Like, this guy was sensational.
Yeah.
Do you think that is like the blueprint of what TFC should try to be moving forward? Or do you think it should be different?
You know, I always said that with the process of Toronto FC and where it starts, everybody's got to play a role to develop or to build an organization to get it where it needs to be. When we won that, when I say we, Toronto FC,
that's okay. Yeah.
When that club won a championship, there was a lot of people along the way that put the blocks to build the house.
For sure.
To get where it was. And you know, certain players, myself at the beginning, and D-Rose and Dickios, and you pass it on to the next group. And then they started getting the right players in, putting the right pieces to the puzzle. They brought in Bradley, they brought in Giovinco. Up top, you had Altidore, which was clever because you got a big guy up top that can battle the defenders. You got the little man underneath that can pick up the ball in little pockets, create space opportunities. So that was the moment when I went, this is perfect. They've built the right team now, and they've got the right players in, which showed you that the scouting was bang on at the time, because the players that they brought in all fit together, they all gelled together, and they end up winning a championship. And then what ended up happening was you end up losing Altidore, Bradley he leaves, and Giovinco, his time's up. And it was almost like they went, well, maybe we have to go find the next Giovinco, which was Insigne. Well, nah, it doesn't work like that. Lightning doesn't strike twice, does it? Right? So you got to make sure that you figure it out and find the right players that you think are going to make a difference, and then culturally are going to buy into living in Toronto. It's a high energy, vibrant city, multicultural, and a lot of players can't sit. Or not sit, but can't buy in or settle into big cities. Sure. Yeah. They struggle with it sometimes because the bright lights get them, and they get the better of those players. So you've got to do your homework and find out, you know, the characteristics of the individual. What are they like? You know, are they involved with family? Or, you know, do they go out? Are they out all the time? Are they party animals? Or do they stay at home? Are they focused on their job? So there's an awful lot that goes into it behind the scenes. But I'm sure these guys will get the right players and make this club great again.
I literally just wanted you to say, get a second Hawk statue. Like, we could have been done this segment 6 minutes ago. Excellent from Jimmy Brennan, the former TFC starman. He's also a former Canadian international. We wanted to talk about the Gold Cup final, the women's national team thrashing the U.S., but it's going to take a much different tone when we talk Canada on the other side.